welcome to Knitting the Network, a podcast in which I talk to members of the activist community and try to learn more about activist movements, their methodologies, and what drives people to participate in them. My name is Selene Rivas, and today I'll be talking to Jacob Kaufman, a high school senior and activist who participated in the March for Our Lives following the acts of gun violence in Parkland, Florida. This was my very first interview for the show, and you can probably tell how nervous I was. Please enjoy, and I hope you learn as much as I did.
I'm a senior at Pembroke Hill in Kansas City, Missouri. I play basketball, and I like math and science. I go to Rainbow Mennonite Church, which is where I heard about conscientious objection and a lot of the peace and justice things that I know and want to be more involved with. I heard a lot of that through my church and my parents.
Right.
And I like listening to music and things like that.
Great, excellent. How long have you gone to Rainbow Mennonite Church, you told me, right?
My dad grew up in a Mennonite church. My mom's not Mennonite, but we joined the church when I was a little kid at some point, so I've been going there for at least 10 years, I think.
Wow.
I was baptized at the church.
Well, when you first contacted us, it was to ask us, because you were going to one of those, the anti-gun marches, right? Yeah, so can you tell me, like, what made you want to participate beyond, of course, your church?
Right. So people from my church were going, and people from my school were going, but I think that in general, I just saw the way that people were getting in schools as kind of a frightening subject, and it scared me a little bit, and I really want some sort of change. I don't know exactly what at times. I mean,
right.
Yeah. But I wanted to see some change, and I thought the march was a good way to make sure that people know that change needs to come.
And how did you feel when you were in the march? Did you feel like there was the possibility for change? I imagine, because there, from what I read about the marches, there were a lot of people going, right?
Right.
So.
Right, and there were marches all across the nation, so I really did feel like there was a change. Most of the time, people were speaking or reciting poems or singing songs, and most of the time I was just learning more about what happens in schools and how to change kind of the politics of it, but also how to change the stigma and social change, kind of like that.
What was that the first march that you've gone to?
Yeah, that's the first march I've ever been to.
Oh, you think you'll go to some more?
Probably, yeah. I think a lot of my generation is trying to prove that in the future, you shouldn't worry about the hands that you're putting the society into, that we'll take care of the earth, we'll take care of each other. I think that's what we're trying to prove.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I completely agree with you. I guess, I don't know if you are also, I know I am, but like, are you a millennial? I don't really know what the different, the gap is.
No, millennials were teenagers around the turn of the century, so around the year 2000. And I was born in 1999, so I think technically I'm in the middle of Generation Z, is what they call it.
Right.
So the next one.
Right. Well, another thing that was exciting for us, because as I told you, a lot of organizations within NOMI are religious, from different types of religious backgrounds, and many of them are peace churches. And from the very little that I know about Mennonites is that they're also like historically a peace church. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your experience with your religion.
Yeah, you're right. So a lot of the Mennonites in the United States immigrated here because of the nations that they were in, whether it's Germany or Russia or Switzerland or wherever. A lot of a lot of those countries were forcing Mennonites to fight in their military and didn't allow for them to be against war and to live peacefully like by themselves. So a lot of them fled to America because they knew that their religion was free here. And so I think we've continued to keep that tradition of peace going. In America, we're allowed to be conscientious objectors because of our religion, but now they expanded it so like if you have a moral or ethical belief, you don't not necessarily a religious belief where you believe I wouldn't be able to hurt another person or participate in hurting other people in war, then you can still be a conscientious objector, and that's what I want more people to know, I guess. Not necessarily just religious.
Yes, I think it's exactly. Would you say, I know this is sort of like a difficult, maybe perhaps it's impossible to imagine, but do you think that had you not been part of the Mennonite faith, do you think that you'd be equally interested in all of these social issues that are happening right now?
That's difficult to tell because I think a lot of my personality was influenced by my parents, and my dad is of Mennonite faith, so it's like half of it.
Right.
But because I go to a private school, and because so many people here are involved in social justice, and a lot of my friends are. I think I still would go to things like the March for Our Lives and eventually be involved. I just don't know if from a young age I would have like accepted that that's okay, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like I've known for a long time that protesting is an okay thing to do since it's brought up in my church that it's okay. I don't know if I wasn't a Mennonite. I don't know if I would know what conscientious objection was.
Right.
So I don't know if I would file to be a CO.
Right.
Necessarily.
Right. Well, from your position, do you think that there is a large amount of young people who are as invested in making a change? Because I know that, like hearing the older people, right? Sometimes it seems as though they have no faith in the younger generation. Right. So I wonder, you like knowing, living and being part of high school, what do you see?
Well, I think you're right. A lot of the older generation has kind of seen the world as it has been, and they're kind of. I haven't seen this kind of push for change from young people before, and so to see that is pretty exciting. But also, I go to a pretty liberal school in an urban area, so I see it a lot, but I don't know if necessarily everyone sees that in those around them. But in my school, definitely. I'm a big dreamer, but I would say that there's a lot of people in my school who are more motivated than I am to make change happen. We had multiple people help organize the March for Our Lives because it was organized by kids our age, and there are more organizing more marches after.
Yeah. So tell me, because most of our work is regarding militarism, and of course it has to do with conscientious objection or conscientious objectors. So tell us, like, what do you know about militarism and militarization?
So in my project that I've been doing, I've looked at a lot of different, mostly military recruitment in high schools, and I've learned that there is something called the delayed entry program, which is a program that high schoolers sign up for, and they go to like a boot camp and they train, but they're not in the military yet. And then eventually, when they turn 18 or when they get to a specific date that they've talked about, they get to go into the military at that point. And so it's a way to kind of recruit young people to join the military. And it starts from a really young age, and and the recruiters often talk about the benefits of joining the military, but don't talk about like the reality of joining an organization that like participates in war. So it's and some of the recruiters don't like kind of take that a little bit lightly, is what I've read. But yeah, the program is kind of like an alternative to going to college or getting a different civilian job, and it kind of eases people into the military, I guess. But at the same time, many of the kids who are part of the program don't know that you can leave the program at any time.
Exactly. And are there, I don't know about your high school, but because it's private, usually more recruiters go to public schools, but have you seen these recruiters or these programs?
I haven't been. I went to a public middle school, but we don't have any recruiters at my private high school. There was a ROTC program there, but I don't remember any military recruiters coming and talking to us or anything like that.
Yes.
I don't know firsthand, but I've read that oftentimes they target low-income areas where lower percentage of students are going to college, and like especially regions with minorities and things like that.
Exactly. So would you say, because you told me that you found about this issue thanks to your church, right? But I was wondering, like, do you think other young people are aware of exactly this insidious, this very prevalent sort of problem that's embedded in the culture?
I know at my school, when I'm explaining my project, almost no one knows what it is. I think a lot of people know what conscientious objection is if they remember the Vietnam era, but especially kids now, the draft hasn't been prevalent in a long time, and they don't know what it is.
Right.
But yeah, most people don't understand. We don't have military recruitment here, but I don't think people realize. For example, the No Child Left Behind Act allows military recruiters to be permitted onto any campus, and the school can't say no. And like the harm that the recruiters can do to some of the lives of the kids who have better futures than joining the military.
Exactly. So, can you explain to us a little bit about this project that you mentioned?
It's a paper, and then there's a presentation. And I started focusing on conscientious objection because I was curious about that and becoming one. But slowly I learned that a lot of the roots of the problem is with military recruitment and militarization. So I talked about how that most of my project is talking to people like at organizations like Know Me, or a man called Bill Galvin at the Center on Conscience and War, and talking about the number of people who are in the military now and decide they want to become a conscientious objector and try to apply for that status. But the problem is in the high schools, there's a lot of militarization and things like that. And then part of the project is trying to come up with a solution. So I talked about there are peace organizations like Veterans for Peace and things who talk to schools and churches and get people to not only know about conscientious objection, but mostly know about the problems with recruitment in schools, and teach the kids, like, yes, you're signing up for this and there's these benefits, but also remember that you don't have to go at this time, and there's you must stay for this long and things like that.
Right.
The pros and cons. So make sure that everyone's informed, and instead of just having one side of the argument.
Exactly.
And part of it is making sure that kids are educated, and that you're not necessarily telling them what to decide. Like, you don't want to make the decision for them, but just making sure they know. Also, part of the solution I proposed too was like after the Parkland, a lot of the kids who are survivors were very active on social media. So yes, they were on TV and the radio, but where they gained a lot of following and where their voices were heard the most was on social media. And I think if information about military recruitment was spread on social media, that would be even more effective than even people going from school to school, because it's faster, and a large majority of kids get their news on social media, even in low income areas, and think like that's just where people learn their things now.
Yeah. What ways would you say are more effective for reaching young people through social media?
I think personally, I don't have very much social media, so I may not be the best person to ask, but I know a lot of people use Twitter, and that may be the only source of their news. They may not watch the news, and a lot of people, that's at least part of the way that they get their news is mostly Twitter. And I think it's good to make sure that you have something on you have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and everything that you want. But I think that's a really effective way. I mean, the president's on Twitter, and celebrities are on Twitter, but a lot of organizations have Twitter too. So it's a good way to plan things like rallies, but also just to spread information, like even links, like this is a link to a website if you want more information about this. I think Twitter in general, it's like the fastest too. It has the most things. It's just you can sift through a lot of different things.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I think it's the less, with Facebook, you see all these things about algorithms and the way that they shift content around to try to appeal to you instead of trying to show you the content in chronological order. Whereas in Twitter, I think it's just whoever posts first is the one who shows up, and that's it.
Right. And also, I think people post less personal things on Twitter, and it's more about the social world around them. So I think a lot more organizations are effective on Twitter. I think also it's some of it is word of mouth. Like, just if parents know about militarization, then kids will know about militarization too. Kind of like growing up with it. So I think it will take time, and I think it's important that you use social media, but also you're using every social media, and you're using people talking face to face, and organizations like Veterans for Peace and things like that. So just because social media is the best way to reach kids our age doesn't mean that should be the only way we.
Exactly. Yes, it has to be like a strategy on all fronts.
You can always just try and see which social medias are the best too.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're just trying to see. I think many social organizations are just trying to see what sticks, right?
We're planning. We just had the March for Our Lives, and we're doing the walkout next week. But I think that the process of vying for gun control is going to take longer than a month, and it's going to take longer than a year probably, and it may take longer than 5 years. And just remembering to not, obviously you guys won't stop at organizations like Know Me, but I think in high schools and colleges, just remembering to always think that just because nobody's talked about it recently doesn't mean it's still not an issue.
Exactly. Right. Do you see yourself continuing in the future, like to also work on these social issues?
I see. I don't know about as my main profession, but I see myself maybe taking a gap year in the middle of college and serving and helping do things like this. Even as a hobby when I get older, maybe on Saturdays going to rallies and advocating for things like this. So I don't know necessarily that it would be my job, but it could be another thing that I work for.
Exactly. And that's excellent. It's good to have this long-term vision. And I think that doing this interview was very interesting, and I hope that in the future perhaps we can keep talking and have other interviews like this.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. That'd be great.
Yeah, especially I want to hear what happens with your project, like how it does in the classroom and what other people say about it.
Right. I finished my paper, and my teacher agrees with me mostly. But my presentation is in a couple weeks in front of my family and other teachers and other people, other students. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and if you it would be really cool if you want to, of course. Like if you could record it and perhaps we can put it on the website, like as a thing, that this is what young people are talking about. It's cool.
I wouldn't mind maybe recording a shorter version.
Well,
all right.
Thank you so much for agreeing to have this interview, and I hope that we can talk in the future.
Of course.
Okay, well then, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This month we want to give a huge thanks to Jacob Kaufman for talking to us. This is a project done for and with the National Network Opposing the Militarization of Youth, hosted and produced by Selene Rivas. Intro and outro music by musician Anne Annie. We hope you tune in next month. Bye!